out of the red corner, an undefeated mixed martial artist holding a perfect professional record.
What's up, YouTube? Crossover MMA back in here for another video. This is my UFC 308 recap. I went 10-3 on the card, so not too bad. Let's not waste any more time and get right into it. In the main event, we had Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway for the featherweight title. So coming into this fight, Ilia Topuria was making a big deal about how he was going to point down to the center. He wanted Max Holloway to meet him in the middle. Ilia comes out, points to the center of the octagon. Max Holloway doesn't meet Ilia in the center. And I got to be honest, this was a huge flex and it set the tone for the fight. This also made it very clear that Max didn't want to be in the pocket with Ilia and exchange. In my opinion, it was a brilliant move by Ilia. And the first few seconds into the fight, Ilia now knows Max's plan on staying at range, moving around the octagon. And in hindsight, Max may have lost the fight right there. Ilia was being very slow, methodical, patient. We're starting to notice a trend where with Ilia comes out a bit slow in the first round, makes his reads. And the only thing that changes this is if he gets his opponents up against the cage, at which point then he explodes with big combinations. Ilia was using his jab, was feigning. Max early on is on the back foot, circling, trying to see how Ilia will attack him. Max wasn't throwing out a lot early in the round. Then Ilia shoots a double leg, picks Max up, gets a takedown. Max gets back to his feet. Ilia gets him right back down. Then Max gets right back on his feet and circles out to the open of the octagon. Then Ilia just starts blasting Max with calf kicks. In my opinion, these are what set up Ilia for success later in the fight. And I mean, these are heavy calf kicks and get a big reaction from Max each and every time they land it. Max started to land at like the midway point of the round. That's when Max really started to open up and start to land. He's using his jab. And while Max is using his jab, Ilia is still continuing to use the calf kicks. It's very clear Ilia's game plan, just that slow methodical pressure, the calf kicks to slow Max down so he'll be easier to hit later in the fight. Get in the boxing range and just use heavy combinations. Towards the end of the round, Max started landing some more strikes, specifically that jab and then some counter right hands. Max slips and Ilia just ends up on his back at the end of the round. It's very close, very competitive round, but I gave round one to Ilia. If you gave it to Max, I would totally understand. I mean, this fight was very good in my opinion. Round two, Max comes out, standing his ground more so against Ilia. He's not really bouncing, backing up, or circling. He's sitting down his strikes and it's countering. Ilia just continues to attack Max's lead leg with the calf kicks. Max's jab continues to land, and then Ilia lands a right straight left hook combo. At this point, both guys are landing. Ilia is continuing to invest into the calf kicks. He's already seeing dividends with less movement from Max, and Max is also finding success with some short shots in between Ilia's combinations. I gave round two to Max, so I had it 1-1 going into the third. Round three picks up straight away with action. Both guys are landing in the exchanges. Ilia is continuing to invest in the calf kicks. Max's movement at this point is even less than it was in the first round. He's countering with his hands a little bit more now. Max is also throwing out this little stomp to the knee and some lead head kicks and a few body kicks. But you can tell they're really just to keep Ilia honest and don't really have much steam on him. He then lands a huge right straight, getting a big reaction from Max. Max stumbles into the cage and you can tell that he's definitely hurt. This is the biggest shot of the fight. Ilia then swarms Max up against the cage, throwing big combinations. Max is trying to counter and even landing some. Then Max circles out to the center of the octagon and you're like, okay, Max is trying to recover. Ilia then just walks Max down into the side of the octagon again. They exchange, and in this exchange, Ilia goes first and then Max goes second, and Ilia goes third and lands a massive left hook, dropping Max. Ilia swarms Max for the finish, gets the TKO. Phenomenal fight. Ilia Topuria becomes the first guy to KO Max Holloway, puts a stamp on a new era at 145, injects himself into the Fighter of the Year considerations. knocking out Alexander Volkanovski and Max Holloway in the same year. And this is just truly another great win for Ilia Topuria. Next fight, we got the co-main event between Robert Whittaker and Khamzat Chimaev. Going into this fight, we had so many questions, and I think we got a lot of them answered. Round one, they come out. Whittaker lands an inside leg kick. Khamzat throws a head kick and it misses badly. Whittaker then lands an outside leg kick, and then the avalanche that is first round, Khamzat Chimaev ensues. Khamzat shoots a takedown, pushes Whittaker up against the cage, then moves to a body lock, just starts manhandling Whittaker into a takedown up against the cage. Whittaker is actually doing a good job scrambling, making it tough for Khamzat. And Khamzat is mixing in a little bit of ground and pound just to be a nuisance to Whittaker. Khamzat is just taking Whittaker from position to position. You can just feel the pressure just watching it. And you know if Whittaker makes one wrong choice, this fight is going to be over. Whittaker essentially is minimizing the damage, making it very difficult for Khamzat. And Khamzat Whittaker denies Khamzat getting his hooks in. If Khamzat gets one hook in, Whittaker would instantly scramble to the next position, and Khamzat would just flow with him. Whittaker briefly makes it back up, but Khamzat just gets him right back down and then gets the Dagestani handcuff. Khamzat at this point is literally just riding Whittaker and has control over him. Khamzat lands some sneaky elbows up against the cage, and at this point, I think the elbows were used to distract Whittaker from Khamzat sneaking his left arm into position for the rear naked choke. Khamzat gets that arm in there, and it's not even under the chin. It's basically on Whittaker's jaw, and he applies pressure, and Whittaker taps instantly. And vintage Khamzat Chimaev shows up and just absolutely mauls Robert Whittaker. I'll include a picture actually of what Khamzat Chimaev did to Robert Whittaker's jaw. He ended up dislocating it or like just fracturing his jaw. And that really just shows you the power and the strength of Khamzat Chimaev. I think Khamzat, in my opinion, is the #1 contender now. Strickland, in my opinion, shouldn't get a title shot off beating Paulo Costa, who has 0 wins over anyone in the UFC, and he's only won 1 fight in the last 4 years. Next fight, we have Magomed Ankalaev versus Aleksandar Rakic. So for this fight, basically, Aleksandar Rakic basically circled around the octagon for 15 minutes, just feinting, throwing some leg kicks, mixing in some jabs, and never really taking any risk to land anything of consequence, in my opinion. Ankalaev was pretty much moving forward the whole fight, and it really was just a tit-for-tat fight. Ankalaev landed more strikes in round 2 and in round 3. That pretty much was the fight. Magomed Ankalaev gets his hand raised and probably will now get the title fight against Alex Pereira. He's on a 13-fight unbeaten streak. But that's pretty much all I got to say for this fight. It wasn't a lot of action. Aleksandar Rakic didn't really just take any chances or bring the fight to Magomed Ankalaev. Next fight, we have Lerone Murphy versus Dan Ige. So round 1 in this fight, Dan Ige comes out and is on the pressure straight away. Keeping Murray on the back foot, Ige then gets a takedown, holds the position for a little bit, but Murphy manages to get back to his feet. They start going a little tit for tat at this point. Then Dan Ige lands a big left hook, drops Lerone Murphy, hurts him badly. Ige swarms Lerone Murphy looking for the finish. Murphy scrambles back to his feet, but he's just covering up, trying his best to survive. I honestly don't know how he made it and he survived, but he figured out a way. And I thought he was very lucky to make it through the end of the round. And for me, it's a clear 10-9 for Dan Ige. Round 2 comes out and it's tit for tat again. Ige's pace is a little slower after throwing so many strikes in the first round and trying to finish Lerone Murphy in round 1. Ige then shoots the takedown. Murphy defends it and reverses Ige into the clinch up against the cage. He lands some strike in the clinch and then they break free. Murphy turns up the pace on Ige, starts landing more strikes. Lastly, Murphy lands a takedown at the end of the round. Ige reverses Murphy, nearly puts Ige in a triangle, but I gave this round to Lerone Murphy, so I got it 1-1 going into the third. Round 3 starts and it's another tit for tat round. Dan Ige comes out a bit more aggressive and then a grappling sequence ensues. Ige starts out on top, doesn't really land any ground and pound. Murphy then manages to reverse the position, lands some ground and pound. Murphy gets in advantageous position, lands some more strikes. There's about 15 seconds left in the round. Both guys are just unloading. They're on their feet at this point. And that's pretty much the end of the round. It's a very close, competitive round. I gave this round to Lerone Murphy. Ends up winning a 29-28 decision, getting his hand raised. Next fight, we have Shara Magomedov versus Armen Petrosyan. So round one of this fight comes out. It's tit for tat to start. Both guys are landing leg kicks. Petrosyan lands a short right hook. It stuns Shara a little bit. Petrosyan then puts on some pressure on Shara, lands a huge right straight. Shara pretty much recovers, and then they start exchanging. Both guys are landing. Shara lands a couple big strikes. It's a very competitive round. I want to say Petrosyan lands more strikes. I'll probably show you guys the stat numbers. Round two, Shara comes out, bouncing, landing his kicks. Armen staying right in front of Shara. Both guys are landing. Shara then lands a nice lead head kick. Petrosyan just eats it. Shara then throws a spinning back fist, and it lands, but it kind of lands more on the forearm. And then right after that, he throws another spinning back fist. So it's a spinning back fist combination, and it catches Petrosyan clean on the chin. And it's basically a walk-off KO. Shara doesn't even follow up. The ref stops the fight. Petrosyan wasn't out, but you can tell he wasn't there at all. And when he landed, he basically just started covering up. And it was sick, bro. If you get a chance, definitely go back and check that out. And it was my first time ever seeing something like that in the octagon. So then we've got a few prelim highlights we're going to go over. So in the feature fight on the prelims, we have Ibo Aslan versus Rafael Kinkera. In round one, they come out measuring, trying to find the range. Aslan then lands a massive left hook, and it hurts Kinkera straight away. Aslan knows he has him hurt and just starts unloads, punching against Kinkera up against the cage. He's covering up, just eating big shots. After about 8, 9, 10 unanswered shots, Mark Goddard steps in for the TKO win in round one. Next fight, we have Mateusz Rebecki versus Metabek Orbay. This is a fight of the year candidate, and this fight was an absolute war. Round one, Rebecki comes out very aggressive, moving forward. Both guys are standing in the pocket, landing strikes, keeping a high pace. It's literally back and forth. They come together, and the camera all of a sudden goes to Orbay's face, and his right eye is swelling big time. I'll insert a pic so you guys can see it. At the end of the round, like, his eye is basically closed. The doctor has to come in, take a look, and as we can see, his eye is already closed. It's a 10-9 round for Mateusz Rebecki. Round two, they pick right up where they left off. Both guys are standing right in the pocket, landing big strikes. Rebecki at some point gets a cut over his right eye and just starts bleeding everywhere. Orbay gets this round. Rebecki looks like he's slowing down some, so it's a clear 10-9 round for Metabek Orbay. Round three, which is the best round in my opinion, both guys come back out and they essentially just meet in the middle. Rebecki wobbles Orbay early, then drops him with a massive left straight. Orbay manages to survive. Both guys are just bleeding everywhere all over the octagon. This fight is just grit and will. He's going for the finish. Then Orbay reverses the position, ends up on top, and is landing strikes on Rebecki. Both guys get back to their feet, and you can tell they're just exhausted, beat up, and they're just swinging to the horn. And this fight was truly amazing. I gave round three to Rebecki, 29-28. He gets his hand raised, and this was just an absolute war, guy. Lots of fun, and both guys gave everything they had. Lastly, we have the first fight on the card between Rinat Fakhretdinov and Carlos Leal. Guys, this was, in my opinion, this was a massive robbery. I'm just going to give you a few stats. I'll probably even throw them up. Rinat Fakhretdinov was 2 of 19 on takedowns and had 3 minutes and 14 seconds of control time. Leal pretty much controlled the center of the octagon the entire fight. He landed the heavier strikes, and he also landed more total strikes. It was a competitive fight. I'm not going to act like this was just a complete whitewashing here. Like, it was competitive. Rinat was definitely in the fight, but he clearly lost this fight. 29-28 for me. You guys go back, rewatch it. Let me know what you think. I'll include the picture of the scorecards and the stats, and you guys can go from there. But Rinat Fakhretdinov gets his hand raised by decision, and one of the judges even had it 30-27. Rinat Fakhretdinov. I don't know how in the world you come to that. I thought that scorecard was crazy, but you know, these decisions and this judging, we got to figure out something with it. If you made it this far in the video, thank you. I greatly appreciate it. Questions, comments, feedbacks are always appreciated. Subscribe to the channel, and as always, until next time.